Hello friends, this video on electric circuits part 1 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. To be covered in this lesson are cells, internal resistance of cells, EMF and terminal potential difference of cells, grouping of cells, Kirchhoff's rules, Wheatstone bridge, meter bridge. So in this lesson, we will basically study about complicated electric circuits. So when I talk of complicated electric circuits, what do they consist of? What do you think would they consist of? They will consist of elements like resistors, capacitors, and your batteries, right? All these things will make up an electric circuit. So before we get into the analysis of electric circuits, it is very important to have some basic idea of cells. Cells, or what you normally call as battery, right? All of you are familiar with battery. Your cell phone has a battery, your music player has a battery, you might have inverters at your home which again have batteries, and they are all of different shapes and sizes, but they are all cells, or they are all batteries. So what is basically a battery? In layman terms, or everybody knows that a battery is something which provides you, it is the source of current. That is what any general people will tell, right? But there must be something going on inside the battery or inside the cell, because of which there is a current flow in the circuit. Because from where is the battery producing the current? From where is that flow of charges coming up? Right? So in this slide, I will just tell you an overview of how a cell works. I will not get into the detail of it, because you will be studying about cells and different types of cells, electrolytic cells, dry cells, galvanic cells, and voltaic cell, and so many kinds of cells in your chemistry syllabus. So I will not get into very much detail about it, but yeah, here I will take an example of a cell, and I will tell you how basically a cell functions. What is the basic functionality, or what is the basic principle of the working of a cell? So when I talk of cell, the first thing that comes in your mind is the battery, which you normally see around yourself, right? This battery is something which is very common and which is used by all of us, right? But what is the mechanism that is there inside this battery which makes it so special, or which makes it perform what it actually performs, right? So when we talk of that, here you see a figure which looks very complicated with so many things, right? Here you can see this diagram basically tells you the internal structure of the battery. This is how it looks like when you see it from inside. I am not talking about the internal structure of a specific kind of a cell. This is a galvanic cell. As I told you, there are many kinds of cells, like a voltaic cell, Daniell cell, dry cells. So I am not getting into the detail of each of them, or I am not going to differentiate each of them. I just wanted to tell you how a cell functions. So for that, here I have taken the example of the galvanic cell. Okay. So with the help of this galvanic cell, I will tell you the basic functionality of a cell. Now, before that, let me tell you, whenever I talk of cell here in terms of circuits, I need to have a circuit symbol for cell, like how I have for resistors, how I have for capacitors. You remember the symbols, right? You should actually. This is your resistor, this is your capacitor, right? So similarly, how do you represent a cell? You represent it like this. Please be careful. Capacitor and cell, they are differentiated this way. In capacitor, both the plates are of equal height, but in case of a cell, the positive one is little longer than the negative one. So this is how you schematically or pictorially represent a cell in a circuit. Fine? Okay. So now let us get into the working of the cell. How does the cell work? Now, coming to the construction of the cell, first, before knowing how a cell works, we should know what is the cell consists of, what is present inside the cell that will make it work. So the basic construction of a cell consists of electrodes and electrolyte. These terms, you might be familiar with these terms in your chemistry. So what are electrodes basically? Electrodes are nothing but conductors through which current can pass. Right? So electrode is an object through which allows current to pass through it. Now electrode can be in the form of wire or in the form of a rod or in the form of a plate. So here in the galvanic cell, we have two electrodes. One is this zinc electrode and the other one is the copper electrode. So here if you see, it is in the form of a plate, or you can say it is in the form of a rod. Right? So this zinc rod acts as an electrode. So it is a conductor which allows electricity to pass through it. So the cell consists of electrodes and electrolyte. What is electrolyte? Electrolyte is again a substance in which the presence of free ions make it electrically conductive. That means it is a kind of substance where free ions are there. So since free ions are present, therefore these free ions help to conduct electricity. So basically the presence of these free ions make it electrically conductive. So here in this case of galvanic cell, what is the electrolyte? Electrolyte is this ZnSO4 and this CuSO4. If you see this ZnSO4 aqueous solution consists of free ions, that is Zn2 plus and SO4 minus, right? Zinc ions and sulfate ions. So because of those ions, it is electrically conductive. So this is the electrolyte. So normally in any cell, you have an electrolyte and you have electrodes. So the presence of electrodes and electrolyte is general to any kind of cell. Now let me come to specific discussion on this galvanic cell. So in this cell, if you see that it has two electrodes, one is a zinc electrode and the other one is a copper electrode, right? And the electrolyte is zinc sulfate and copper sulfate solutions, right? So what happens in this case? You have two metals, that is zinc and copper. Now it is a property specific to each metal that they have a tendency sometimes to gain electrons and sometimes to lose electrons. So in this case what happens is the zinc which is present in this electrode, this zinc always wants to become zinc ion. That is, this zinc always has a tendency to lose two electrons which are its outermost electrons. If you look at the electronic configuration of zinc, you will see that zinc has two electrons in its outermost shell. So zinc always wants to get rid of those two electrons. So zinc will always have a tendency to lose those two electrons and become zinc ion. That is, zinc will have a tendency to lose two electrons and become zinc ion, right? On the other hand, this copper ion which is present in this solution, this copper ion always has a tendency to gain two electrons and become copper and stick to this electrode. So this copper ion, so both of their wishes are quite different. Zinc has a wish that zinc gives out two electrons and become a zinc ion, whereas copper has a wish that copper ion has a wish that it gains two electrons and become copper and stick to the copper electrode, right? So both of them has two different wishes. So what does copper wants? Copper wants that copper gains two electrons and becomes copper, right? Now this tendency results in what? As a result of this tendency, this zinc will lose electrons and it will become zinc ion, as you can see here. Now as soon as it becomes zinc ion, it comes out of this electrode. So zinc will keep losing electrons, and what will happen to those electrons? If we join this zinc electrode and the copper electrode with a conducting wire, then the electrons which are lost by zinc will travel through this conducting wire and reach the copper electrode. So that means some electrons become available at this end. So this copper ion will become extremely happy to see those free electrons. It will quickly come and grab those electrons and become copper. Right? So as soon as you join the circuit, as soon as you join these two electrodes, you are basically completing the circuit. Now there is a proper circuit, a closed circuit rather. So what happens? The electrons start flowing from zinc to copper, and these electrons are then quickly absorbed by the copper ions, and the copper ions become copper. So as this process keeps continuing, what happens? The zinc, more and more zinc becomes zinc ion. Therefore, this electrode, that is the zinc electrode, keep on going, becoming thinner. It will keep going. It will keep on reducing because zinc is getting converted into zinc ion. Similarly, as these electrons are traveling to this end, more and more copper ions are accepting electrons and becoming copper. So that means the copper electrode will become thicker. So with passage of time, the zinc electrode will become thinner, whereas the copper electrode will become thicker. So a time comes when your zinc electrode does not exist at all. It becomes so thin. Its thickness becomes negligible. So when your zinc electrode almost vanishes away, then your battery stops working. You say that now it is time to charge your battery. You have to charge the battery. Right? So this is the basic working of any cell. Now as you look at different varieties of cells, as I mentioned the names before also, like voltaic cell, Daniell cell, dry cells or whatever, in all of them the basic functionality will remain the same, just that in those cases, your electrodes will be made up of some other material. The electrolytes will be some other material. So those kind of differences will be there, but the basic functionality will still remain the same. So this entire functionality arises because of the property exhibited by zinc and copper. So that means the choice of material of which the electrodes will be made up of plays a very, very important role in the working of a cell, right? Thank you. Please visit examfear.com to watch free educational videos, try free online tests, get the best quality study materials, study from the best tutors and mentors, and much more. Thank you once again.